Well, hey, welcome to the Georgia 6th District. Today I'm going to talk about an interview that Trey Gowdy, who's a Republican congressman, who is a former prosecutor, and even though he's very right-wing and very supportive of Trump and pretty negative toward liberals, he is actually one of the more reasonable Republicans. And he had an interview on Fox News, and he pretty much said that Trump was wrong about this Spygate thing. So what I did is I got a transcript of it, and I put the transcript together. Let me show you what Trump said, and then let's see a little bit about what Trey is saying. Here's the website that I got it. It's Trey Gowdy on Spygate. Now, this is Fox News. So notice here, too, is that I'm using a right-wing media outlet and a right-wing evidence. So it's not like I'm only cherry-picking left stuff. So here's what the right is saying, and this is what the message that they're sending out to their constituents, their voters. But before we see Trey, let's look at what Trump is saying about Spygate.
A lot of people are saying they had spies in my campaign. If they had spies in my campaign, that would be a disgrace to this country. That would be one of the biggest insults that anyone's ever seen, and it would be very illegal. So it would make probably every political event ever look like small potatoes. But if they had spies in my campaign, during my campaign for political purposes, that would be unprecedented in the history of our country.
So I agree with Trump. See, we agree. If they did this, this would be a bad thing. All right. So now they've done the research, they've done the investigation, they had a big meeting at the White House. Trey Gowdy comes back from that meeting and says, there is no spying. This is all made up. This is all BS. So listen to Trey Gowdy now talk about that. And I'm going to come back on the other side.
Yes, I am even more convinced that the FBI did exactly what my fellow citizens would want them to do when they got the information they got, and that it has nothing to do with Donald Trump.
Okay, so I put on to a conservative site. It's called the Conservative Union. My interpretation of that, I said Representative Trey Gowdy, the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, said the FBI acted appropriately when it used an informant to gather information about Donald Trump campaign's advisors who allegedly had suspicious contacts linked to Russia. Then I said, so what? I doubt any conservatives will change their beliefs. I said conservatives are so wedded to their hatred of the left that they will ignore Representative Gowdy's comments and move on. So I'm saying Trump is lying. Maybe he really believes that he was spied on, but be that as the case. So here's what conservatives wrote back to me. Representative Gowdy is an honest prosecutor with more information than the public. I would agree with that. The small clip says what most conservatives already knew. Okay. They knew that Trump was lying? No, I don't know. That clip, however, says nothing about Trump lying. Well, it doesn't say anything about Trump lying. I mean, this is the use of words, right? Trump is saying that there's this whole Spygate. Trey Gowdy comes out and says there's not. Now, is he lying? Maybe not, but maybe he really believes there's that Spygate. But that wasn't the point, was it? So I'm not sure what your point is, that Gowdy was saying Trump's not the focus of the investigation. Well, again, it's an interesting deflection. We're talking about the Spygate claim. We're talking about Trump saying there's Spygate. I presented this video where Trey Gowdy says there is no Spygate. It's not there. There's no there. But here's a conservative who completely ignores that and focuses on Trey Gowdy's point, and you'll see it if you listen to the whole thing, about Trump not being the target of the investigation, which is interesting and needs to be discussed on its own. And then I responded, and then he just goes on. He says, here, I think the first 50 seconds explains, where he says he thinks the first 50 seconds explains Trump's mindset. Okay, it explains his mindset. He's frustrated. I get that. Everybody's frustrated in office. Obama was frustrated. I heard Gowdy state that the informant spy was doing what Trump wanted. No, I didn't see where he had said that at all. Maybe he needs to point that out to me. I don't see Trump lying, but having a perception that the spying was nefarious against him. Well, this is the thing that they do. This is perfect. He wasn't lying, but he thought it was nefarious. But then then Gowdy says there's no evidence of it being nefarious, but Trump doesn't buy that. All right, so I responded, It says, did you ever even read what you posted about Gowdy? He says the FBI is guilty of spying, and their reason was allegedly that someone on Trump's team was courting Russians. I've posted the whole transcript, and I didn't see that. You may find it quite hard for people to agree with you when you keep trying to propagate a farcical narrative. Well, no, I'm not propagating a farcical narrative. Trump is saying that there's this narrative, and I'm saying that's farcical. But not only listen to liberals, because you don't listen to liberals, you won't even listen to conservatives. So anyway, be that as it may, here's the whole thing. And if you like our channel, please subscribe.
So joining us now, South Carolina Congressman Trey Gowdy, chairman of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee, also member of the House Intel Committee. And you were one of those who saw some of the background documents related to this issue of whether or not there was a spy or an informant in the campaign late last week. Anything you can share on a broad scale about what went down there?
I think there are two things important to understand. Number one, the source of President Trump's frustration. Brennan said he should be in the dustbin of history. Comey said impeachment's too good of a remedy. Clapper doesn't like him. Loretta Lynch said call it a matter, not an investigation. Schiff said he had evidence of collusion before we even began the investigation. And 60 Democrats have voted to impeach him before Bob Mueller has come up with a single solitary finding. That's what's got him frustrated. What should have him heartened is the fact that Chris Wray, Rod Rosenstein, and all the senior folks at DOJ now were all Trump appointees. So here's what's fair to ask. What did the FBI do? When did they do it? What was the factual predicate upon which they took whatever actions they took? And against whom were they directed? But remember, Martha, it was President Trump himself who said, number one, I didn't collude with Russia, but if anyone connected with my campaign did, I want the FBI to find that out. It looks to me like the FBI was doing what President Trump said, I want you to do, find it out. He's not the target. So when Schiff and others don't make that clear, they're doing a disservice to our fellow citizens. He's not the target.
But this raises the question that the president raised in this one of those tweets. There were a lot of them, and which we talked about quite a bit here last week. Is if that were the case, why didn't they give him a little briefing? So here's what we found out. We do have somebody who asked some questions of George Papadopoulos. We do have somebody who's asked questions of Carter Page. Here's what you need to know.
I think defensive briefings are done a lot, and why the Comey FBI didn't do it, I don't know. But Chris Wray and Rod Rosenstein have at least made it clear to us Donald Trump was never the target of the investigation. He's not the current target in the investigation. Now, keep in mind, that can all change depending on what a witness says. But as of now, I think Chris Wray and Rod Rosenstein are stunned whenever people think Trump is the target of their investigation. I'll leave it up to them how to brief the president or how to brief his lawyers. Was that point of view that you're
talking about right now, was that strengthened when you went into this briefing last week?
Yes. I am even more convinced that the FBI did exactly what my fellow citizens would want them to do when they got the information they got, and that it has nothing to do with Donald Trump.
All right. So given the things that were over here on your right hand, all the frustrations, do you think it's problematic the way the president is tweeting about this all the time? Because he feels like he needs to vent. He's got to get his message out there. Is it legally problematic in your mind what he's doing?
I think anytime you create prior statements, you give Mueller or other folks a chance to question you on them and ask what was your factual basis? Why did you say that? The president should have access to the best legal minds in the country. And I think he should take advantage of those. And he's got some really good communicators that are on his staff and at his call. If I were his lawyer, and I never will be, I would tell him to rely on his lawyers and his comms folks.
All right, here's one of them. Rudy Giuliani speaking with Bill Hemmer over the holiday weekend. Watch this.
What's wrong with the government trying to figure out what Russia was up to?
Nothing wrong with the government doing that. Everything wrong with the government spying on a candidate of the opposition party. That's a Watergate, a Spygate. I mean, and without any warning to him. And now, to compound that, to make it into a criminal investigation, Bill, that's why this is a rigged investigation.
There are two things wrong with what the former U.S. attorney said. Number one, no one knows whether this is a criminal investigation. Mueller was told to do a counterintelligence investigation into what Russia did. Number two, President Trump himself, in the Comey memos, said, if anyone connected with my campaign was working with Russia, I want you to investigate it. And it sounds to me like that is exactly what the FBI did. I think when the president finds out what happened, he's going to be not just fine, he's going to be glad that we have an FBI that took seriously what they heard. He was never the target. Russia is the target.
So it sounds to me as if you would advise him that there's no problem with him sitting down with Robert Mueller.
Oh, absolutely not. I have always said, I think you ought to sit down with Bob Mueller. You've told us publicly there was no collusion. You've told us publicly there was no obstruction. Say in private what you've said publicly. Limit the scope to exactly what the Mueller memo is. But if he were my client, and I'd say if you've done nothing wrong, then you need to sit down and tell Mueller what you know.
All right. You know, there was one judge who said that the scope was all over the place. Do you feel comfortable with the scope of this investigation, and do you feel like your committee has been shared with to the extent that exists, that the scope exists?
I'm not sure what the scope of the Mueller probe is, but I know this. Rosenstein is the one who created the memo.
Right.
It's not Bob Mueller's fault.
Have you seen that memo?
I have. I've seen the memo that you've seen also. The other memo some of my colleagues want to see is a more narrow,
the one that basically says investigate Russia and anything related to it.
And as a throwaway line at the end, and of course, if there's any criminality, look at that too. I mean, we run towards the criminality, but I would think everyone would want to know what Russia did. So I mean, with whom, if anyone, is the second part. The first question is, what did Russia do?
All right. We'll see. Trey, thank you very much.
Yes,
Good to see you, Congressman.